Hello and happy Monday, Xbox Nation. Welcome to this week's new episode of the Xbox Lunch Break Special. I'm your host, Mr. BoomStick XL. And folks, we have an absolutely outstanding show for you here today. I think we're going to go about maybe 75-ish kind of minutes, maybe a little bit more, because normally it's just me and Fuzzy Belvedere. But we have a guest, and well, like he has shown up before, there is some drama within the PlayStation Nation. And well, that's all due to Helldivers 2 releasing on Xbox the same day that Gears of War releases on the PlayStation 5. I mean, what a day for gamers. You're getting two multiplayer games. You're getting an incredible single player game redone. One of the best, obviously games in the franchise for sure. Most people consider it one of the best anyway. I would say 3, 1, 2, maybe if I had to do the order. But the 26th of August is going to be an incredible day for gaming because no matter where you play, you're going to be winning. And of course, obviously, we don't know if anything's coming out for the Switch, but Donkey Kong Bonanza releases in 10 days, ladies and gentlemen. So I'm very excited. Me and my nephew Tyler are going to be hanging out playing that game as well. Crispy Bomb, welcome back, brother. We have two big topics, one of which, of course, is Helldivers 2 surprisingly launching on the Xbox. And that's a really big deal. But the first opening salvo is going to be about what's happening with motorsport. Folks, I have an outstanding theory. I got some documented evidence that suggests that my theory is more than just that. But how you feeling there, Crispy? Welcome back.
It's going to be a great day on August 26th. It really is. PlayStation gamers, not stands, gamers are going to be able to do what they want. They can, there's going to be new DLC involved with Helldivers, but obviously, if some of them have never touched a Gears game, they are going to try it. And I highly suggest going through the campaign first, at least on normal. That's the way to do it. Get used to the movement and everything else.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sure, that's where us Xbox gamers will get thrown in the fire because this is an MMO. It is, massive multiplayer online. And we are going to be thrown right into the fire more than likely. And we love that, though. If you're going to shoot us in the back, though, we're going to figure out a way to come back at you. We'll be quiet about it. But that's the only thing I've seen. A couple saltiness with they love Helldivers, but they're also like, oh, I'm going to shoot these Xbox players in the back. And I'm like, okay. Yeah, we see you. It's all right. We'll roll up. We play with PC people. You know that, right? We've been playing with PC people for a while now. You could shut off crossplay on most games, but generally it's easier to get a lobby if you just play with PC people and say screw it. And I've made a lot of friends over the years, so we'll see how that goes. But other than that, it's a great day to be a gamer, in my opinion. I've been sitting on the sidelines watching everything happen. And yes, we had bad news, then we have good news. I like good news, and I already expressed my opinion on the bad news. So let's get to some interesting topics and some good news.
Indeed. And of course, rounding out today's podcast, the best bald head in the business, Fuzzy Belvedere, kind sir. Hopefully you are feeling better. You took some time off. Friday, we didn't have a show, obviously, because, well, it was 4th of July, and it was nice for everybody to kind of just recharge their batteries. Mrs. Boom and I did that over the weekend, had a good time doing it, and, played some Animal Crossing, got some Call of Duty footage in. I think I'm recording after this show my 14th game, my 14th 2-hour gameplay, where I came in first quite a bit. As you saw, I just had best play. I love this game. I know there are a lot of people that, I saw the tweet from Jez where they showed the Terminator getting kicked in the balls by Beavis, and a Ninja Turtle pointing, and what has Call of Duty turned into? I mean, it is what it is. But again, you are the perfect person to have here to talk about motorsport, because obviously we didn't get a chance to talk last week, but you were a little bit under the weather. The studio has been shuttered. 50% of the staff have been laid off. The actual remaining staff is going to be a support studio for the Forza Tech engine. I have a theory, and I can't wait to get your opinion on this, but there is no better person to have on the panel than Mr. Racer himself. How you feeling, brother? Welcome back.
Oh, feeling great. Glad to be here with you guys. Yeah, a bit of bad news last week, but there's always silver lining in the grayest of clouds out there. So yeah, we'll get into some stuff about Forza, and yeah, I love the meltdowns on social media about Helldivers. Is it a first party title? I mean, it's owned by PlayStation. It's published by Nixxes. I would consider that a full-on first party at that point, but it is what it is. But I'm pretty sure some Xbox players will have some fun with that game if they haven't already, hopped on board on PC and stuff like that. But yeah, it's a different world, I guess. Xbox games on PlayStation games on Xbox. Who knows what's next? But yeah,
I'm so glad to be here with
you guys.
Is the next thing. Interestingly enough, well, I mean, listen. Again, let's get right into one of the biggest stories from last week. Now, obviously, depending on who you are, your mileage is going to vary. For me personally, the biggest gut punch was what happened with Perfect Dark. Based on, it was almost my game of the show last year. The game looked amazing. I know there's been some controversy about whether it being full-on gameplay or just something that the player followed or whatever. It doesn't even matter at this point. The game is no more, and that's sad, to be honest. But that's actually not what we're here to talk about. We're here to talk about what is going to happen with motorsport, because we did have a report. And this, of course, came from an anonymous former employee of Turn 10 Studios who said as such that motorsport is no more. Okay. And what I did is, obviously motorsport, the current game that's available took a long time to finally come into fruition, right? There were a lot of delays with it. It didn't launch with the greatest track number. It didn't launch with the greatest car number, how many cars you could race. Did it have a lot of issues? Not really, but it had its issues. Again, we're going to go right first here to Fuzzy Belvedere about how long the development was on it and where exactly Microsoft, or more specifically Xbox and Matt Booty and the team, lost faith in what the Turn 10 Studios could do, because obviously their Forza Tech engine is incredible, and that is why half of the staff is staying on as a support studio. But I have a thought and a theory, and here's why, folks. So I'm all about that evidence-based conversation. I think that if you're going to have an opinion, yes, we're all entitled to our opinions, but I like to try and add facts, or at least written articles that could back up my thoughts, rather than just me throwing a thought out into the ether. Well, I found an article from last year, and it's almost a year to the day, folks. It was written, well, first of all, it was from windowcentral.com, and it was written by Samuel Tolbert. Now, I like Samuel's work. He's a very good journalist. I've talked about Samuel on this particular podcast before. And it is an article that was released July 29th of 2024. And the lead article states, the developers of Forza Horizon and Fable at Xbox appear to be getting a third studio. The big question is, for what? Now, this is Playground Games we're talking about, ladies and gentlemen. There are currently 3 studios. There is the Forza Horizon studio. There is the Fable studio, and now there is a third studio. And I think what this story ultimately does, Fuzzy Belvedere, is telegraph what happened last week with Turn 10 Studios. Because look, folks, what we have to do is call a spade a spade. Now, I know that there's going to be some people in the chat saying, hey, Boom, you know what? I'm one of those fans of motorsport over Horizon. And if you are, that's awesome. But the majority of people that play racers, at least Xbox first-party racers, Fuzzy Belvedere, well, they are Forza Horizon fans. And the last Forza Horizon was phenomenal and had a bunch of DLC that made the game even better. It's had a ton of support through content updates and tweaking and adding additional cars and tracks and modes. It's been incredible. And obviously that earlier this year launched on to PlayStation 5 to great success. And I believe right now it is sitting at 44 plus million players across PC, Xbox Series consoles, and of course, PlayStation 5. What's interesting, and here's my thought and theory to this, Fuzzy Belvedere, is that being that Playground has now taken the lead on what will be a racer or racers from first party, and I believe that they are going to be the ones, I was going to say, speeding down the track, but that would have been a terrible pun. I really believe that this third studio, the announcement of it, well, the report of it last year was telegraphing what happened last week. And again, folks, this is just my opinion, and I could be 1,000% wrong. But why create a third studio if you did not want Playground Games to take the lead on what happens to Forza Motorsport? Because they could do a sim racer if they were asked to do it. And of course, they didn't close Turn 10 Studios like it was rumored. Yes, half the staff lost their jobs, and that is egregious on any level. But there is still half of that team that released the last Forza Motorsport there for support. I really think that Playground Games is going to take this lead moving forward. I want to get your thoughts on this. Could this mysterious third team actually be the new motorsport team, Fuzzy?
It is possible, although I'm not sure that was the original idea behind the third studio, but it now would fit and make more sense to transition them to that. There was some rumors way back when that was first talked about that they might be looking at like a flying base game, not flight sim, but something more like Panzer Dragoon style kind of thing. But that's that. Just like that rumor, there was also rumors that they were not going to do Fable and do their own RPG at some point. So things definitely can change, especially given the circumstances as far as some changes to Turn 10 and stuff like that. But as far as talking about motorsport overall, I just want to not really point out, but like some of the things that I wouldn't say upset me the most, but really disappoint me in this, what seems to be a quick or unplanned or well thought out turn of events, is the fact that yes, Turn 10 has had a target on its back for some time. People that are kind of in the know with Turn 10 have known since their delay from 22 to 23, I think it was. That's kind of put them on, I wouldn't say the chopping block, but some heads on a chopping block, because that whole from the ground, that building from the ground up, which it's not 100% the case, but there was a lot of starting over as far as the handling and things along those lines. So with all of that, they took a lot more time probably than even they anticipated, because it is going to be a long process when you start from scratch kind of deal. And looking back at it, was that the best decision? I can't say. I do love the new handling model and the new tire model that they have in comparison. But if they had just done the upgrades or the tweaks to the tire model on the previous engine, let's say update all of the motorsport cars from 1 through 4 that a lot of people had issue with as far as some of the car models, and then rescan all of the tracks, they probably could have gotten everything finished by whatever preset deadline. But then again, if they weren't doing it from the ground up, maybe that deadline would have been shortened. So it's really hard to say if that was the straw that broke the camel's back. But I do think that definitely hurt matters as far as the outlook of that team. Now, kudos to them for getting a lot of the updates and continued support that they've done up to this point, getting Forza Motorsport to kind of where they wanted to have it at launch, but time being the factor, that wasn't the case. And I said it when it was launched. It was, I call it a beautiful mess in the sense that visually it was outdoing everything that Motorsport 7 did. Although some people had some issue with some of the lighting or coloring in some cases, but it was an improvement over the Motorsport 7. Some of the other aspects could have been tweaked as far as the lighting is concerned, but the handling to me was also a vast improvement as far as the tire model, curbs, tire wear, heat and tires, things along those lines. That was all well welcomed, improvement. But because it was missing some of the key tracks that people wanted from launch, because it didn't have all of the cars, let's say, from what Motorsport left off at, because it didn't have certain modes or certain abilities as far as like the drifting and things along those lines, it definitely put a damper on its launch. And you only get one time to make a first impression kind of thing. Yes, it's the 8th in the series kind of deal, but in the grand scheme of things, that launch wasn't quite what we had hoped for, is from, or at least myself and I would say some others in the fan base. I'm pretty sure there were plenty that were completely satisfied with its launch, but for those that were looking for, more variation in race types, more variation in modes and things along those lines, it was a little bit of a letdown, but it was something that we were all willing to be patient with in their process of updating. And they did a very good job as far as those updates. But the drawback is they already had that target on their back. It wasn't bringing the player base numbers. And I think that's probably the biggest reason why we see what we saw with Turn 10 and the laying off of plenty of the staff and things along those lines, is that in that process of getting the game to quote unquote 100%, you weren't seeing that increase that you would normally expect in player base, like returning players when there's updates and such. It just wasn't happening for them. All the while, Forza Horizon 5 is doing gangbusters still on the current platforms, when at the time being PC and Xbox, and doing fairly good numbers on PlayStation 5 as well, when it's just brought there, I wouldn't say on a whim, but within that short period of time, and basically without any real additional support, just more so of the continuation of what their roadmap was, and then some repeats within that roadmap to kind of, extend the lifespan of that game until they release their next one. That was showing that, it probably from a numbers standpoint wasn't worthwhile continuing, which I kind of disagree. I think they could have taken some other approaches that may have helped their player base numbers. I've said it before. I've said it on social media, especially considering the events. I hope that they open this up to mod support. And it's probably been one of my biggest gripes with the Turn 10 establishment in whole, as far as, yes, I get the sanctity as far as online racing. You want it to be as pure as possible so you don't have to worry about cheaters and such. But the mod community is what keeps a lot of these sim racers, because sim racers, while some are doing rather well, they are still niche in comparison to arcade racers. So with that being said, having mods or being open to support mods would have been an approach, I think, that would have expanded, or at least, kept the player base kind of happy, because there's certain things that they haven't carried over from, Forza Motorsport 4 that people are still looking for as far as Rivals and stuff like that. Some of the stuff for Rivals and 7 even weren't in it at launch. And those things have eventually been tweaked so they are similar to where they were before, but people could have done mods for those. Myself, I being a big fan also of Gran Turismo 7, I've always wanted them to have it where we can pick from our own garage of cars to create playlists or racing lists. So that way, for those that are doing offline racing, if I want to recreate the last weekend's IMSA race with the GT3 and TCR cars and things like that, I could without having to, worry about what paint schemes they are, pulling from my friends list and their cars and such. I can make it look like an actual recreated race. And that to me is the big thing that I like the most about Gran Turismo. I mean, there are other pros and cons to that sim racer as well, but that was the one feature I really wanted to see in motorsport that, I can probably do with mods, but every time I've tried to do mods, I get that big scary warning, like it's going to ban my account. And that's the last thing I want to have as far as if I'm, being into racing, is have it where, I can't do the racing at all unless I do like completely offline and it, all the time from that point forward. And, kiss off any updates that they would have done, post at or after that point. So it's a lot to take in. It's sad to see, but if the staff that they're keeping on board for maintenance of the engine, maybe they do continue to do some support or some tweaking to the existing motorsport. At some point, maybe they pass that torch in a collaboration with Playground, which I wouldn't be completely opposed, but I do like how the handling model is for motorsport at this point. I also love how Horizon is, but one's an arcade racer fully, and the other one is like a simcade, I guess what a lot of people would refer to it as. And I think you don't want to mix up those feels. You could have a variation where you can go from simcade to full arcade if you want, have that available, or that adjustment in the settings, which they kind of have done for the most part with all of the motorsport. But I just, the biggest thing I'm afraid of is that they're going to pass it to Playground. It's still not going to do well as far as being a sim racer per se. And they're still going to probably be closed to mod support, which I think is probably the biggest Achilles heel. Like, look at Assetto Corsa, even though Evo is in preview right now and it's working out a lot of the kinks for the next generation of Assetto Corsa. But look how old the original one is and how many mods are out there and how long that game has been able to stay alive and attract an audience because of mod support. I think that's the thing that, maybe Turn 10 or maybe Xbox as a whole kind of, kissed off as far as a potential option. I mean, Bethesda is very comfy with its creators and mods. With Flight Sim, it's always been flexible with its mod support as well. I think that's something that may have been missed from motorsport as far as being able to have something similar to what Flight Sim has or what some of the Bethesda games have. And I think that's a missed opportunity. But moving forward, if Playground is the one that's going to carry the torch, I do hope they are open to doing things a little bit different than what maybe motorsport had done in the past, as far as allowing us to use our cars for race lists, allow us to, import paint designs, not have to always do the painting of the cars in game, which older sims, you could, go in Photoshop, paint your car or take actual photorealistic images and resize them to import back into the game. I think that would be something that I would like to see, moving forward, if Playground is the ones that are going to pick up the torch. You can't do full import with GT7, but you can import your own logos and designs, which saves time as far as having it, as opposed to creating a design specifically in the paint tool. But it sucks. It really sucks for those of us that are sim fans. I'm a sim fan, but I don't want to pay a monthly subscription fee. Yeah, I know I have Game Pass and all that, but iRacing is pretty much the de facto sim racer right now. It's just that you have to do a monthly fee type of deal, which I'm not the biggest fan for that, especially if I'm looking to do offline races. If I was only an online racer, then yeah, it makes sense. But you still have Assetto Corsa and you have Evo right now that's in the works. Not as big of a fan of Competition, Assetto Corsa Competition, but yeah, it's a sad day when we lose one of the pillars in sim racing. We'll see if anything comes of it, 2, 4, 5 years down the road. But I guess Horizon wound up being a motorsport killer to some extent, considering how well it was received across multiple platforms versus a sim racer that is meant to be niche, but I really wish that they would have stuck behind it a bit longer, because there are technical things that you can test there that would help, with the development of things in Horizon for future and stuff like that. But maybe with the team being cut down and being in the support stats, maybe that collaboration will help with innovation, but we'll see. But either way, I've rambled enough about it.
No.
Hopefully they continue.
No, absolutely. I'm happy to have this, the educated opinion on this, because obviously you are one of the biggest racer, gamers that I personally know. So whenever you talk about it, you're coming at it with massive amounts of passion. I enjoyed motorsport, but I enjoyed it enough to put a bunch of hours in and never go back. Right.
Mm.
I did spend a lot of time with it because I'm not a sim guy. I prefer being able to drive like a complete lunatic. Everyone's going to make fun of me the way I drive. I'm going over cliffs, and all I'm trying to do is get like all of the boards. And it looks like I don't know how to drive. I know how to drive, folks. I just don't mind going off-road and just looking ridiculous.
Mm-hmm.
But I understand what you're saying, but I think that, there was a quote in here from somebody. Let me see if I could find it. It was a really good one. It was from Chris Gerard. So, Chris, welcome to the program, brother. Thanks so much for being here. And thanks for hanging out with the community and chatting with us. He goes on to say, Microsoft / Turn 10 should be ashamed, should be embarrassed for the lack of content for Motorsport 8 or FORZA Motorsport. Lack of circuits was simply unacceptable. Plus, you still can't race online with friends, and AI like everywhere, like every other game. I don't know, because I don't play it. I know someone had responded to Chris and said that you can play with your friends. I think he said it's offline.
No, you can play online. Although I know when me, Steel, Mav, Pong, and I think Jasper all were in the same race. It was online, but it was like you would do the practice, you'd do the race, and then you would go to the next race, and one of us might drop out, and I'm not sure why. I think they've fixed that since. But yeah, you can definitely do races with friends against other players that are not your friends. I don't know. I think there are some people that take what they hear from others and never have played the game or have tried it in a while, and kind of assume that that's fact. When it comes to circuits, I had a whole checklist of numbers of the tracks. I think, if I'm not mistaken, I'm going off of memory now without the list in front. I think there were 26 tracks, of which I want to say 23 of them were real tracks in 7. And at launch, I think there was only like 19 tracks, where I think like 17 of them were real tracks or something to that effect. And then since then, they've added more tracks. They've added, I think, 2 fan tracks or fantasy tracks, and I think they've added 3 real tracks from their previous list that they had in 7. So yeah, there were some fewer tracks, but that also comes down to licensing, and that's part of the thing that I hate about these types of games, where you have to rely on the tracks agreeing to whatever price point they will accept for having that track in the game. It's almost like you would think the advertising of having the track in the game would be enough, but no, they want money on top of that for the licensing and stuff. So, and some of those tracks are tied to certain racing series, like certain tracks that were in previous motorsport are tied to NASCAR. And if you don't have the full NASCAR license, you don't get those tracks. And there's supposedly iRacing is making a non-subscription based game that will have a lot of those NASCAR tracks, but we haven't heard much of it lately. It should have actually been released last year, but still no updates as of recent. But IMSA is another series that you have to kind of work with that series for some of the tracks. And also when you're looking at overseas or non-American based racing series, those tracks also have additional licensing. Some of them have overlap because some series will race in Japan as well as in the States and race in Europe and stuff like that. But other ones are, like, with the exception of Indy, only race overseas. And those are all the licenses that they would have to pay for. And I'm pretty sure with considering the cutbacks that Turn 10 has, their budget for licenses was probably capped, and that shameful, yes, but it wasn't quite as bad, but it was frustrating, let's just say.
I mean, fair points all around. But Chris, appreciate you being here, brother. Crispy Bomb, you've been sitting here. You had a chance to listen to the race professional in Fuzzy Belvedere. I'm interested to get your thoughts on my theory, because again, I know that it's possible that this third team was going to do their own thing, whether it be a flying game. I know someone had put in here, they'd love to see Crimson Skies. Yes, please make a new Crimson Skies. But after what happened with Perfect Dark, man, I don't know if that's ever going to happen again. We know Fable's still locked in. Fable's going to be a big game for Playground. But, I don't know if they're ever going to go. I mean, I know people are asking about the Banjo Kazooie conversation. We're going to have it, folks. I got it in front of me. I didn't list it as a major topic because we're going to spend 10 or 15 minutes on it, because you guys know I could talk about Banjo Kazooie for 2 hours. I know you don't want to talk about Banjo Kazooie for 2 hours, but we do have new information. But Crispy, let's get your thoughts on this, because look, for whatever reason it may be, whether it be a confidence situation, whether it be they just could not, recover and deliver what Xbox wanted for Motorsport, which is of course their biggest sim racer. Whatever the excuse or story is, the team was shuttered. They took 50% of staffers and they laid them off. And they kept the other 50%, and this is their words, not mine, that are going to be known for as a support studio for Playground games. That ultimately tells me that if they are being held still there, they didn't close Turn 10. Turn 10 is a studio. It still exists. It has been halved with its staff for sure. And that sucks. But the studio still exists as we know it. They're going to be a support studio for Playground Games, who has taken the lead, right? Now, I don't think Motorsport, I know, again, there's been numerous reports, and we've actually heard from people that remained anonymous that used to work for Turn 10 that Motorsport is no more. I don't personally think so. It is a big IP. And there is a stark difference with the audience. There is an arcade racer audience. That's me. There is an audience like Fuzzy, like Chris in the chat, who like sim racing. To completely go away from it doesn't make any sense. And that's where my thought and theory comes into, well, they did create a third team. Was this third team for a new project and had nothing to do with what happened last week? Or was it possible, I guess, a telling of the tale? Like they knew that this was going to happen at some point. They knew Playground Games was going to take the lead. They knew that the Motorsport team was going to be shuttered and they were going to ultimately become a support studio. And that's where this third team comes in for Playground Games. What are your thoughts, man?
Well, I'm not going to touch anything Fuzzy said because he knows better. It's just
Indeed,
like when
sir.
I talk about Gears, okay, like he gives me that respect. So that's all I'm going to do. I'm going to go down this interesting rabbit hole of understanding that we don't know if they have to pay for 2 licenses for all these cars and everything else to go into both games that are called Forza. Like they start with Forza. If you really think about it, it would be logical to just call the next game Forza, and it is Horizon and a sim racer all in one, and all these licenses to these cars. Yes, they might drive differently, but you can mess with them, especially in Motorsport. Because, I was a sim racer at one point, and then I got Need for Speed Porsche Unleashed, which was supposed to be a arcade racer because it had Need for Speed in front of it, and it was not. I was like, yeah, no, I'm not really into these sim racers anymore. I want arcade. I want just having fun. If you look at the visuals between the two, I mean, I'm sorry, like Horizon absolutely destroys it in certain aspects because you're going throughout the world and it just feels different. It's almost like you're discovering something new, especially in Mexico. Like I'd never been to Mexico. Like it felt new. Not saying I played a ton of it, but most of the time I was just looking at stuff. You gotta realize that, I think personally, I think Obsidian this year just destroyed their entire like we can have a studio, add more people to it, and they have such a great culture that we're going to continue to provide them what they need because they continue to deliver. And I think Obsidian absolutely, and like I've always said, like Insomniac for PlayStation, Obsidian for Xbox, they deliver. And I think Playground has shown that they deliver and they're going to continue to deliver. And if this third studio is, like basically like you could put a motorsport DLC inside the new Forza Horizon, and that would like really think about that, because are they paying for new licenses for these cars, or are they just tweaking the way they drive and it's a racing like, so like, you really go down that rabbit hole. And look, I used to be a NASCAR fan, like aerodynamics, like all these things I used to pay attention to. Okay. So what does that mean? Like, and if you really look at Playground's track record, like they have been hitting on all cylinders for like 10 plus years.
Yeah.
And
I agree.
they have like this past one has been a 3-year dev cycle compared to 2. Every year is 2 years for a next Horizon. And this past one's 3. And then it's like, okay, like, but Motorsport was 4, but there's a quote, question mark type thing going on there because people believe that it was far greater than just 4 years. And you look at what Xbox is trying to do, why not put that under a complete just Forza banner and maybe drop the Horizon. I know people might not like that. I understand that, but also drop the Motorsport, which people might not like that, but put it under a Forza banner that says, Forza, this is where racing happens. And you know what I mean? Like something like that, like just throwing it out there. Like you could play arcade in one realm. You could play, full on sim racer on another realm. I mean, the way the landscape of gaming is going right now, I think it's an absolute like travesty to watch that happen, but also there's still a support team there because Forza Tech is so important. And who knows better than a lot of the motorsport team? And if you cut it down from the people that were just making the game and you go down to the actual people that built the system themselves, I bet you they're still there. And it goes back to saying, look at IdTech, okay? There's still other companies, like we don't hear about it, that use IdTech. You still have, the coalition over here, they were the support team while trying to do all this gear stuff. Think about that. So there are just certain teams, and I think, I hate layoffs. I really do. I mean, I've watched so many people get laid off from where I work and such, but if you really look at it from a not even corporate, just like what's logical, and you say, man, like some of these studios are just great. You know what I mean? Like so good. Like just have a culture inside of them that we don't want to touch because they keep They keep making it happen somehow. And I think Playground's one of them. I mean, you didn't hear nothing from, Playground didn't get no layoffs, and they're making Fable as well, which is a totally different game than what they make. And you go and say, well, why would they only cut 50% and not close the studio of Turn 10? Well, maybe they're going to be the new A team and they're going to include other people. Who knows? I mean, you have to have those studios that are willing to do like different things and go in on the back end and be like, oh, we could change this. We could make this look better and this and that. It's a logical thought process. I don't like the layoffs, as I said, but it's one of those interesting thought processes that I've had over the past week, I would say.
I mean, first of all, great theory about, and again, this is, we don't know this is going to happen, folks. I would prefer them to make a full-on motorsport. I believe that, like Chris in the chat, and I'm sure Fuzzy here, and many people in the chat would prefer them to make another motorsport, motorsport 2028 or whatever it's going to be. Because you got to remember, they are online or in line to release the next Forza Horizon that is coming next year. Technically, by the numbers, you would get another motorsport 2 years after that, right? Or the year after that with a 2-year dev cycle. We'll see. I do like the idea that if they're not going to release the actual game, could they, and someone actually said it in here, they were asking you, I think it was Sin in the chat, that was asking, well, this is a better question for Fuzzy. See the way Call of Duty has this hub of everything in one location? Do you think that there could be a Forza-like hub where here's your Horizon, here are your DLCs, here is your motorsport, your motorsport section for, your sim aspect of it. Is that something that could work, Fuzzy?
I think so. Now, this is before Motorsport. I was hoping they would do something like that with Horizon. Basically do a high-res redo of some of the earlier maps, like from Horizon 1 through 4. And well, actually, I guess 4 might not need it as much, but have it where you go to like some of the airports and you can fast travel to the map in Australia for Horizon 3, or you can travel to like Eastern Europe as far as for, Horizon 2. And have it where they're all kind of grouped together. I don't know how that would work with licensing. It would probably help with some of the earlier titles. But I think that would be a great idea if they could make it that way. Now, there was some hope and a dream stuff that we had talked about way back when, where it was like, make Forza World. And it was a combination of almost like a flight sim, but in, for cars, basically. And around each track, you would have a potential Horizon around that track. So let's say, Horizon in Florida, because you have Daytona and you have a couple other tracks. You have Homestead and stuff like that. And you could have like these little Horizon like shows and events and things in between, going from Daytona, where you could do the oval, or not the oval, but the tri-oval, or you could do the road course race, or you could do the same, either the oval or the road course race at Homestead, but have all of your Horizon events in between the two, and maybe even some Horizon events on those tracks as well. But it would almost be like the way, remember how the MotorStorm trailer was, or the intro was, where it's like you're flying over this area and it's like, oh, this festival pops up and they make all the tracks. Well, you would have that at an actual real racetrack, and then you would have other events outside that racetrack, almost as if it is a real festival for that race weekend. Something like that would be awesome. I know that would be quite a bit of an undertaking, but I think if they could pull it off, where those that just want to do the races not on a paved track kind of thing can still do all that fun. Maybe make some of the custom tracks where they have the bouncy things, or some of the tunnels and stuff. If they want to do that, they can still do that. But then for us that want to do the on track stuff, we can go and, sign up for the Daytona 24-hour race, or an abbreviated version of that, or like what somebody was saying in the chat, like they have the multi-class racing that you can do now, very similar to IMSA. But if they could up the car count maybe to 50 or something like that, have it where you can really have the prototype cars and the GT3 cars and the TCR cars all on the same track at the same time, and have about the same numbers you see in the IMSA race that you see on the weekend, and maybe even have qualifying.
Oh, man,
40
that's great.
people sign up to do the prototype, but only 10 prototypes can make it into the race, kind of thing. That would, I think that would add the pressure and the I guess the excitement into a motorsport if you have qualifying times and time trials and things like that. Or you have it where you have those multi-class races where, yeah, you might be in first place for the TCR cars, but you finish, 15th overall, but still you get your trophy for your class and stuff like that. So having a hub and maybe having it where it's played out actually on the track and the surrounding area, that would be even better. Like, hey, we're going to fly to Eastern Europe and we're going to revisit the maps of Horizon 2. Oh, by the way, you can go to Hockenheim and you can go to a variety of other tracks over there. That would be awesome. I kind of hope they do something like that.
How about they bring back Pikes Peak, man? It's been a long time. You know what I mean? Like no game has really touched that for years.
And it's still a popular event. Like some of those cars look, I won't say ridiculous with all the wings, but it's like there's so many people that go for those types of races and build, these prototypes to do those tracks and stuff. Yeah, bring back Pikes Peak. Have what is it? The Goodwood, where you have that time attack deal. Hey, do the time attack competition over at Cody, or the was it the Course of the Americas, the one out in Texas, basically where they have those time attack Corvettes and Supras and things like that. Yeah, I would love to see all that stuff. And you're basically going to that event location with those tracks. And hey, you can have a Forza festival at that same location where you can make some of your own custom races. So if you don't want to do Pikes Peak, hey, maybe you want to have it where you're doing the skill jumps off the Pikes Peak or something like that. But yeah, having a COD hub for Forza, both Horizon and Motorsport, would be awesome.
I mean, ultimately, what we're doing here, folks, is trying to will into fruition the next motorsport. I don't believe they're going to abandon it. That's my theory. I believe everyone on this panel believes that as well. It is an important piece of Xbox first-party racing. Now, whether the powers that be believe the same thing, well, we're going to know soon enough. But the next racer is going to be Motorsport. Not Motorsport, Forza Horizon 6. That is coming out next year. We don't know the location. We're all hoping it's Japan. We don't know if that's going to happen or not. But yeah, indeed, it was a sad day to know that 50% of the people that made Motorsport are no longer there. That's obviously, any layoffs are never good. And this is one of those situations where we do hope that the overall next step for Motorsport as a series is something that continues in one format or another, whether that be another game, whether that be a hub of sorts, a Master Chief Collection like type of situation would be great for Forza, where they bring back some of the older Forza Motorsports, the older Forza Horizons. That's an idea. An actual new hub where the Motorsport and Horizon are going to live in the same area, which that sounds awesome as well. We will certainly see. But look, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to get into again, this is a small topic. People are asking for it. I don't mind talking about Banjo Kazooie. But before we actually get there, let me just thank the two supers that jumped in here. We have Ray Oid, folks. Now, I'm sure this code has already been redeemed. Ray Oid not only drops a very generous $5 super chat, Ray goes on to gift RoboCop Rogue City, and it is for the US. It is for the Xbox Series X and S. If you did get that code, please thank this man. That is very generous of him. And that's great because Rogue City is an incredible game that most people overlooked, and there's new DLC happening, which is really good. I hope that they come out with a sequel. I actually hope that that same developer who did the Terminator game does a RoboCop versus Terminator. Does anyone remember that game from the Super NES days? That cartridge was dope because it was a black cartridge, and it's actually the box itself was I think I actually still have it in storage. It was a very dense plastic box, but it said like in box letters RoboCop versus Terminator. It's actually really super cool. We have Ginger Prime, which, by the way, I'm going to be on with this Friday, 1 p.m. Eastern. Obviously, when he advertises it, I will then retweet it. I'm going to hang out with him for about an hour, catch up with all the craziness that's been all the gaming news as of late. So shout out to Ginger Prime. He's been a channel member for 1 month. So thank you so much for the support, brother. He says, man, what a crazy week for Xbox. Yeah, indeed. Man. Not a great time to be an Xbox fan, to be honest with you. I mean, I was a little bit disappointed. I did my spiel. I went out on primetime gaming, got a little emotional, got a little, very finger pointy with Xbox, specifically. I know that, they're owned by Microsoft. Microsoft makes the big decisions. Still sucks. Still sucks no matter what. But, gentlemen, this isn't okay. So look, last week I talked about Banjo Kazooie, and I told you guys and gals, I had a chance to see, talk to Phil like a person, and I didn't go to talk to him because they invited me to Microsoft to pitch my idea. Though if I ever got to seat at the table with whoever, whether it be Sarah, Matt, Phil, or the whole team, I'm gonna shoot for the shoot my shot, as the kids like to say. Well, I pitched an idea to Phil. Whether that idea comes into fruition, it's highly unlikely, but it was an idea that I actually brought the numbers. I brought the math with it, as if I was pitching an idea if I was an indie studio. I couldn't develop this game if I wanted to. I have no idea what the hell I'm doing. It's just an idea. But Andy Robinson, who used to work with Rare, way back in the days, is now running VGC, which is the videogameschronicles.com. One of my favorite places to get news. As you will know, I've talked about Andy personally, had a chance to meet him a couple of times. A couple of Sundays ago, I got a chance to hang out with him one evening. Gentleman of a man. Very, very, very welcoming. I think we hung out for like 10 or 15, 20 minutes and just talked and shoot the shit. Tossed around some ideas. But I like Andy, and he posted something over the weekend that had me tickled pink, ladies and gentlemen. Look, I understand that Banjo-Kazooie may not mean a lot to a lot of people in this chat, and I'm sure that there's somebody in here right now making fun of me talking about Banjo-Kazooie, and that's perfectly fine. I'm a platformer kind of a gamer. I have been since way back in the days. I've already said it that if the new Mario game that is supposed to, get rumored to be announced this September at a direct that is, again, it's a Nintendo Direct. We'll see if it happens. I know a lot of people are hoping and praying that it's Galaxy 3. I know a lot of people are hoping and praying that it is a Mario Odyssey 2. Some people just want a new Mario. Well, I don't. I would like for them to revisit where it all started. Mario 64 is one of the god tier games in Nintendo's catalog. I would even say in gaming, right? It was maybe not the original birth of 3D, but for 3D platformers, Mario 64, no one did it better. I'd love to see them revisit that. But in that era, ladies and gentlemen, you had the likes of Banjo-Kazooie, Donkey Kong 64. There were a lot of incredible 3D platformers. And, obviously, you can right now go and play Banjo 1, Banjo 2. You can also play Nuts and Bolts, which I try to play every now and again. And Nuts and Bolts isn't a great game, ladies and gentlemen. It's just not. It's Banjo-Kazooie, sure. It has puzzle pieces you collect, yes. But I hated the building aspect of it. I just this is not what you're supposed to be doing in Banjo-Kazooie. I don't want to build a flying car to get a puzzle piece. I just don't want to do that in my life. But Andy set the world on fire this past week, ladies and gentlemen. I'm going to add this story in, of course, the show notes once the show goes on video on demand. And he said this, folks. Now, this is one of the studios that have pitched an idea. Is not a surprise because they've already talked about it publicly. Toys for Bob had said already publicly that they want a shot at the Burden Bear. We know that right now there are a solo studio. They're not owned by Xbox anymore. They're an indie developer back to doing what they do. It's safe to say that they're working on a new Spyro. I mean, everything that they tweet about has purple in it. It just makes sense. Now, there also is a report that they are working on something that is pretty massive with Xbox. Is that a new Banjo-Kazooie? Well, I don't know. Is it a kart racer? Because we know that they do the crash, kart games. Why not do a big project that involves all of, the IPs that Xbox owns, Banjo-Kazooie being one of them? But the fact that they want to work on Banjo-Kazooie, I say give them the reins. But interestingly enough, and I'm going to read Andy's quote verbatim. Andy goes on to say, I've heard that proposals are being heard lately. Names like Toys for Bob are consistently being mentioned, and they're really keen to make a new one. Interestingly, though, I've heard that Moon Studios has also been very interested. There's always talk of interest in an animated series or a movie as well. And look, folks, I think that there's a place in this world, especially because it's so kid friendly, that you could have a Banjo-Kazooie film, you could have a Banjo-Kazooie animated series, and you certainly, Crispy Bomb, can have a Banjo-Kazooie game. And look, I know that talking about this after what happened last week, people are going to be like, boo. How could this happen if they canceled Perfect Dark, if they canceled this incredible Destiny-like, MMO that was supposed to be, the second coming for, gas games. I don't know what to say, folks. I think that is Banjo-Kazooie greater than Perfect Dark? You know what? I think what happened last week sucks. And I think that, like, for instance, Rare, we know Rare doesn't want to do any of their old stuff. Their game was in development for 5 or 6 years, maybe even longer. It did not come to fruition. That's why that game was canceled. Perfect Dark, The Initiative. The Initiative was a grand idea for this quadruple A, melding of the minds, and that was a failed project. It never got off the ground. It never did what they needed it to do. Perfect Dark comes in. They hire Crystal Dynamics. Crystal Dynamics comes in, and it just, from what I understand, talking to a couple of people behind the scenes, it fell apart. So that's why that game is canceled. Banjo-Kazooie hasn't even been made yet. And I do think that that is something, Crispy, that could do very well on an Xbox, but I think this could do massive numbers on Nintendo. I'm not saying that you should leave out PlayStation. I hate to say it, folks. This is one of those games that needs to be third party. I mean, that gets sold as a third party game. It's on Nintendo, it's on Xbox, it's on PC, it's on PlayStation, and whoever buys it, and whoever doesn't. What are your thoughts on this, man?
Well, you're kind of reiterating what I said last week. I love you, bro. But seriously, like, it's logical, and I look at the people around me, the people that I love, and this game would absolutely, let's not be too serious. Like, this is when gaming was funny. It was weird. We had things like, I'm with you. Mario 64 is one of the greatest platformers of all time. I mean, we're talking, and this is where, like, I hate the stands because they don't understand that we're talking about games that are so old that they deserve some kind of reboot, remake, new iteration, whatever, because you can go back and probably figure out how to play them through emulation or something like that. But not everyone's down for that. Not everyone's down for the PC and all this stuff. And you look at, I'm going to be honest with you. Like, everybody was touting like Switch 2, like selling a lot. And all I see is negative videos lately. I can't play it on the beach. I can't play it here. I can't play it there. And it is a mobile console. You know what I mean? So why not have something that's much simpler, but, is going to require a new coat of paint, something special. And, nostalgia is still here. I mean, like, look at how Gears is selling. Even, you could look at Helldiver and say it was released a year and a half ago. It's at the top of the charts on Xbox. Like, what are we talking about? Like, you got to realize that there's a subset of gamers that may have never played this game. And also, like, you put I'm not saying, change the wheel, but put some decent visuals on the back end. I think it could be something special, especially for like families and stuff like that. And like you said, like, you got to release a multiplayer. And I guarantee, like, we're talking, like, if they release that multiplayer between Nintendo, PlayStation, PC, and Xbox, you're going to sell at least 10 million. I wouldn't even doubt it, because there's going to be some father. It's going to be, what's the bird and the bear? What's that? What's that? And it'd be like a 3-year-old. Oh, you know what? Let's get into gaming here. I love gaming. You're going to love gaming just because of this. It's one of those weird things that, I'm not like the biggest fan like you, Boom, but I can see the worth in it. And
yeah, but the missus is, right. Like, she's a big fan
well,
of it. So,
yeah,
I mean,
no, yeah.
there you go.
She's beat all the Crashes, okay, all the Crash Bandicoots. She has beaten anything. I'm pretty sure she's beaten Spyros and all that stuff. Like, anything that's like that, she is down for. But she, as soon as I said Banjo Kazooie, she was like, "Say what?" And I was like, "Yeah." And she's like, "Oh, come on now. You can't play with my emotions like that." So I look at that and I say, look, it ain't for me. And this is maybe the difference between me and the stands. I don't care. If you're going to enjoy the game, enjoy it. I'll sit there and watch, because I suck at platformers. I really do now. I am better at shooting somebody's face off than doing a platformer, because I don't know if it's depth perception or whatever, but that blind right eye, it just don't work right for that. Like, so I just look at that and say, yeah, but it's not for me. That doesn't mean it's not for someone else. And I hope Xbox doesn't kill franchises like PlayStation has done. I mean, where the hell is SOCOM? Where the hell is Twisted Metal? Where the hell is all these games that, like, they haven't been touched in 10 plus years? Like, there is a new generation that can at least, like, take part, not necessarily enjoy, but at least take part and understand where we're coming from. And until they say we're done, we're not doing it, there's always hope. So I will give you that, Boom.
Listen, I look, the fact that they're hearing that people are pitching ideas, that means that Xbox specifically is asking for these pitches, right? I mean, we know Toys for Bob, they are legendary, or a legendary studio, Fuzzy Belvedere. They're responsible for Crash. They're responsible for for Spyro. They could do justice, and I've been saying it for years. I think that of course, when they were acquired, I was like, oh my god, that's the Banjo studio. And then they left, and I was like, oh, my heart's broken. They're never going to do it, but they want to do it. They actively have pitched what that game is going to be. I already gave Phil my pitch. I don't think that my pitch is even going to be considered, because, well, I'm not a developer. but at least I had a shot. I took it. I said my piece, and I walked away a happy man. Am I ever going to get my Banjo? I don't know. I think there are like maybe 6 of us for the whole team. It's like 6 Banjo bros across all platforms. What can I tell you? We can hang out with the Nintendo bros, because if a new Banjo comes out, it's gonna do gangbuster numbers on Nintendo. Just go watch the video when that bird and bear made their way over to, of course, Smash Brothers. But let's get your thoughts on this. Again, it's not the biggest topic of the show, folks. The biggest topic is still on the way, so hang out, folks. We are going to get into Helldivers 2 and what this ultimately means for PlayStation's third-party potential. And I think that it's a big one, folks. We're going to get into that. It's going to be scandalous. People are going to be upset, but it is the reality. Let's get your thoughts on basically what Andy Robinson is reporting.
Oh, well, I think the biggest thing that's interesting to me, although I know some people now look at that particular dev with a bit of side eye. Sure, Ori was a great game, but it seems that the
leadership isn't great.
Yeah. So that being said, I think seeing an art style that he can bring about to Banjo and Kazooie, I would be interested in seeing that. Like, I'm all for the idea of the game existing, especially if it winds up being a multi-plat, considering how much buzz is behind Donkey Kong Bonanza. I'm not saying that it's going to be that same type of buzz, but why not have it on the Switch too? Why not offer it on PC so people can play it possibly on these handhelds that are out there? Why not offer it on PlayStation as well? I think it would be a good idea for them to at least try. I wouldn't say they've run Crash into the ground or anything along those lines, but we've had Crash, we've had Spyro. Why not bring some of these platformers back? If you're looking for more family-oriented games, although I guess Conquer wouldn't really be family-oriented, but like Banjo-Kazooie would be a nice add to that grouping of games that, maybe you release one every couple of years that winds up being in Game Pass day and date across all platforms. Maybe it gets recognized in the platformer category or something along those lines, but I think it's a part of nostalgia or part of gaming that, really seems to do well on the AA or the indie space per se, but I think it's something that they could probably spend not a huge budget, spend a small budget and get a decent return on it. I think it's a worthwhile investment, especially if they're going to start making a lot of these things play anywhere, having it where the Xbox Ally is coming out. I think it would be a good fit. And like I said, I think it would be a good fit also on the Switch 2 or even the Switch 1 if they want to go that far on hardware and stuff. But I hope they do. But I would love to see what Moon Studios would do visually with it, because Nintendo 64 graphics, I mean, it doesn't have to be graphically stunning or anything like that, but I think Moon Studios would give a new coat of paint that I think a lot more people would probably take notice than your typical Banjo-Kazooie fan. I think that would be the I wouldn't say the better approach, but probably the more noticeable approach to get more buzz behind it, kind of thing. But I hope they do it.
Yeah, well, that makes 2 of us. But here, I have a thought and theory. And again, we're going to move on to the big topic of the show, folks. But lastly, I say let them do both. I'd say let a Banjo-Kazooie 2D game come out, because they did that with Ukulele. Mm-hmm. Ukulele had its 3D platformer, it had its 2D side scroller, and it was like a 2D, 3D thing. It was dope. Bought them both, played them, loved them. Why not bring Banjo-Kazooie back in a big way? Make it a 2D side scroller, right? Now, of course, I don't want it to be like Ori and the Blind Forest. I'm sorry, I really don't want that. I want it to be a Banjo game. But I mean, listen, if you can come at this from a multiple angles and take several pitches, why not both? Because again, my pitch to the world or to the ether is Banjo-Kazooie is the original game is, again, one of those God tier releases, right? It's one of Rare's best works. And I know some people will argue and say that 2 is better, and that's okay. That's fine. I don't think so. I like 1 as being the original. You don't have to reinvent the wheel, right? You simply have the game in front of you. Just take the bones and reskin it the same way that they did Resident Evil 2. I've used this analogy numerous times. Capcom took the greatest parts of Resident 2 and they made it modern. And they added a bunch of things that weren't in the original that were taken out for time, and they made their way into the game, and it was incredible. One of my favorites. Like I said, normally on a Tuesday, Resident Evil 98, my favorite. On a Thursday, that could be moved to Resident Evil 2019, which was both. That's my favorite game ever, Resident Evil 2. So I think that there's an opportunity here to simply take the original game, reskin it, give it modern controls, modern sound, modern graphics, make Banjo and Kazooie look like modern day characters, and still retain the charm of what made the original so incredible. Again, folks, not the biggest topic of the show, but one of which that, you know, people were asking in the chat, so I figured I would bring it up. Eternal Shaddai, ladies and gentlemen, drops a very generous $10 super chat. He says, why isn't Banjo-Kazooie on Xbox? Because every time I try to launch, Kazooie squawks about the Microsoft Flight Simulator being more realistic. Good afternoon, everyone. I believe you can play both. I know that you can play them on the Switch, and I'm pretty sure that they're in the Rare Collection. So I think you could just download the Rare Collection and play them. But great to see you here, brother. And thank you so much for the generosity. But Crispy Bomb, I want to bring you in on this. This is the big topic of the show, ladies and gentlemen. And it's one that set the internet on fire to the point where there were emergency podcasts on PlayStation side wondering what the H was going on at PlayStation headquarters. What happened last week, obviously, was the big story was the layoffs. The big story was the studio closure and, of course, the canceling of games. But almost like clockwork, when Xbox does step on a rake, they do follow it with good news. Now, sometimes that good news takes a few days, maybe even a week. It took less than 24 hours because what we found out very early the next morning after all of the announcements on Wednesday with again, the studio closures and, of course, the layoffs and everything. We got Thursday morning one of the biggest news, one of the big stories of the year so far, and that is that a Covenant exclusive in Helldivers 2, which I talked about last year and got a lot of shit from people for. Again, was I right? Ultimately, yes. Did it happen like I originally thought and what I was explained and what I was told? No. I thought it was going to drop into Game Pass that July. I got that part wrong. But I did get it right where Helldivers was eventually launched on Xbox. Now you ask why? Well, because Sony's a corporation and they like money. And they're also a publicly traded company, folks. And I'm sure that there are people on the board, and even Hiroki Totoki himself, are looking and asking why Xbox games are taking up the top 10, more than half of the top 10. Whenever they put a game on PlayStation, it's in the top 10. And sometimes, and we've seen this more times than the last couple of months than not, Xbox games have taken over the PlayStation store. Yeah, PlayStation's getting 30%, but Xbox is getting 70% on older games. Well, Sony, I'm sure there are people on the board, even Hiroki Totoki, who is the money guy, probably looked at this and said, we got to get this done. Now, of course, Crispy, as you've seen many, many times before, unnamed PlayStation members tried to change the narrative or move the goalpost, as they've done so many times before regarding this release. When MLB came out, it was, well, it's not being produced, it's not being published by PlayStation, so it's not really third party. It's being published by MLB The Show. And you know what? Sony was, quote unquote, forced into releasing it. Otherwise, they were going to lose the license. Okay, I'll give you that. Then, of course, when Kojima's game came out, right, Death Stranding finally released on Xbox, shocked a lot of people because people told us that this was not going to happen. And there was, again, a covenant, PlayStation exclusive. And then, well, Kojima bought the rights back. He now, fully had full control of Death Stranding IP. And, well, Sony Corporation didn't publish the game. 505 Games did. And, of course, we heard that, well, it's 505 Games. It's not really third party because it's second party and it's Kojima and, he owns the license. Lots of excuses. Well, then Helldivers 2 last Thursday morning was announced and literally shuttered the internet for sure, at least on PlayStation side. And, after the shock of this game landing on Xbox on August 26th wore off, we heard some people saying, well, it's not really a PlayStation third-party game. It's, well, I mean, yeah, but boom, it's multiplayer, so it makes sense. Wait a second. It makes sense now? What are we talking about here? And then, of course, you start to see the people dance around the truth. Well, folks, this is a PlayStation Studios published game by studios that are owned by PlayStation. Nixxes helped develop it in conjunction with Arrowhead. Now, Arrowhead is not a studio that they own, but the IP, the Helldivers IP, Crispy Bomb, is owned by PlayStation. This is the first, whether you call it official or not, third-party published PlayStation game, and I don't think it's going to be the last. Now, is that we're going to get Spider-Man like I've been predicting for years? This year, I honestly don't know. But I'm going to tell you this right now. This is the same principles as Phil Spencer's It's Only 4. Because if you think that, and again, we don't know, are Xbox gamers going to come out in droves for this game? Well, they should if they want other PlayStation games. I bought it. I bought the $60 edition. I double dipped. I have it on PlayStation. I bought it on Xbox. The question is, folks, are you going to buy it? Well, if you like multiplayer and you like this type of game, you're probably going to buy it. And if you want more PlayStation games on Xbox, then you should buy it. Maybe PlayStation games don't matter to you. I don't know. But Crispy, let's get a little slanderous because again, I think this is PlayStation politely knocking the door off its hinges. I don't think this is going to be the only game that they publish on Xbox. I think it's just a start. What are your thoughts, man?
Well, I mean, their stock prices went up, and we know that even on both sides, Xbox and PlayStation, they have now like a lot of money hats in front of the, making the decisions, as we like to say. Sometimes they get pushback from, gamers themselves that happen to work in the company, but they don't care. It's like laughing at people that thought this wasn't possible. I've seen so many that have said such dumb things. And, you got to realize that I was one of those people that was like, yeah, release Gears on PlayStation. I don't care. I want it to live. I want Gears to live forever. That's me being a fan of a game. It's not Xbox shill. It's not, anti-Xbox because I care and love that game. And the 26 is going to be incredible. I really, and here's what I love about the Helldivers community. They don't really care. The actual community. And let's be honest, like most of them are on PC. But the fact is that they're looking at this like this is going to be crazy. And there's already speculation that it's going to be Hell Jumpers in there at some point.
Yes.
And they're going to release ODST like DLC or something like that. They're like full on like podcasts dedicated to Helldivers are already talking about this. I mean, what better marriage, really? Like, seriously. And you know, even watching all the clips from like people playing Helldivers, they don't take themselves that, oh, shoot me, you shot me in the back, you stupid, you know, trucker, whatever, you know, like it's like, oh, you dropped this bomb right in front of me. You didn't even tell me
I
what the
dropped
hell is
something on
going
myself.
on.
How about them apples? Like
Well,
I literally I dropped a pod onto myself. I'm like, I just killed myself. What the H? It happens. It's war.
So even as a Gears player, because it's third person, I'm gonna have a conundrum on the 26th because you know, I haven't bought it yet, but I will. Because I love like they're taking Starship Troopers and bringing it to a game. In my opinion, like let's be honest, like that's the way I look at it. Like, yeah, some of y'all don't understand what Starship Trooper was, but propaganda, all that stuff, all the things say for democracy. Yeah, that's the same thing Starship Troopers did. I do love it because it's in a game and it's definitely interesting. I don't want to throw so much shade, but some of these stands are being logical. Some of them are just screaming at the top of their lungs, like, no, this can't happen. Look, man, I understand that. I've had a lot of Gears players look at me and be like, this can't happen. These rumors came out a year ago at the minimum. And what did I always say? I want Gears to live. I don't care how it's done. I don't care if it goes on PlayStation. Yes, as long as you're not a douchebag, I will teach you how to play Gears. And the same goes for some of the people that only play on PlayStation that are still playing Helldivers. I've seen some of them. Some of the people that I follow, I won't name that name, but he's like, I'm going to shoot you in the back. And I'm like, good. Well, I'll roll up with a squad with some PC players in there too, and we'll shoot you in the back.
I've seen some pretty mental illness conversation with certain people. And again, it's not people that I know or would even mention their names, but they're like, I mean, taking it to a level. I know people in the chat have seen what I'm talking about where, you know, they're like, well, we have something called Death Squad, and we're going to go around and ruin the experience for all Xbox gamers. That to me is sick. Like, that's not why you're supposed to play games. I don't know. I play games to have fun. That's pretty off the level. But
see, because we're multiplayer, like, you know, even you, Boom, like, you know, you're Halo multiplayer till no end. The reason why we're used to that. We're used to like somebody coming in and be like, I'm the greatest in the world, you know, and especially being on a console that, I mean, this is your best multiplayer in years, people. Like, y'all better be good at it, because when we come in, it's going to be a different standard. Okay, we play at a different standard. We are competitive. Like, many of the games have been in some kind of major league gaming type shit at one point. Like, y'all need to understand that we play multiplayer games so much that we don't want anything else. If we do play something else, we know it's already a single player game. And then we can just, oh, we got that invite. Okay, let me go back to Gears. Let me go back to Halo.
Yeah.
Let me go back to this and that. We have been doing this forever. And I mean, we had this conversation like when Helldivers was announced. And we we're like, yo, are they ripping off Hell Jumpers? Because that's probably what they did. But also then all of a sudden you get the Starship Trooper stuff in there. And I'm like, yeah, no, that's not Halo. Like, you know what I mean? So they have navigated it well. The community doesn't take itself too seriously. I mean, maybe you stands like you can't stand it. That's okay. Like, it's happening. And the one thing I'll say is, like, I saw a rumor that Wolverine might be launched within a year on multiple consoles when it comes out.
I did see that. That's again, that's a massive rumor. I you know,
But Disney owns the rights to it, just like MLB. Remember that? Think about it for a second. Okay. Disney sees this and that. Now let's throw some shade back at Xbox. Remember, Blade was announced and it didn't say nothing about just being on Xbox, and people hated that. Okay. What if Marvel / Disney is just like, you guys got to release these games on multiple platforms. And that's a point to make. But also, what is happening with Spider-Man? Because supposedly Sony's courting companies to sell the IP of the movie rights because they lost so much money because of Madam Web, and even they broke even, but there's a lot of movies that didn't do well that were within the Spider-Verse. And then all of a sudden, you have, No Way Home and all these other ones that come out and they break it even. That's basically what's happening. It's breaking even through the Spider-Verse because they own all the IP to that. If they're not making money on these movies, yet they're making money on these series that are TV shows, because there's multiple, all the time. I see some great TV shows from Sony Pictures. So what are we talking about here? They are money hatting just like Xbox is. And I personally think, I really think this is going to sell well on Xbox. Gears is going to sell well on PlayStation.
Yes, I agree.
It's going to be a kumbaya moment. Hey, we could do this. We could take our old IPs or things that we think is right for your gamer and this and that. And we can all make money and be happy. And I'm telling you right now, it makes total sense. Gears, if you're a PlayStation gamer through and through, never touch the Xbox, you're going to want to at least try it.
Yeah.
So you got that. Then you got, because you know how I feel about Gears. But then you have Helldivers, which I've seen such a great community built up from that game through PC as well and all this other things. And then I go and look at the future of what PlayStation's doing. And, I even had somebody that I respect come out and say, Nixus is not porting to Xbox directly. And I say, why should they? If they're going a PC hybrid route, why would they need to? They can just port to PC, which there's many games on Steam right now that are not on Xbox. How could they move them over? It shouldn't be that hard because, Xbox, Microsoft, they've been in this realm for years. And would it be weird that if some developers from Xbox came over and helped them port it over? And Phil's idea, I'm gonna be honest with you, everybody plays whatever the hell they want. You pick you pick what you want to play on. And I really think that PlayStation's looking at it we need money. We need money right now.
Yeah.
And I truly believe that, I don't agree with King. I think there's going to be a PlayStation 6. I love King, but he keeps saying it. And I'm there's going to be a PlayStation 6. But if they're not making enough money off of it, there ain't going to be a 7. I'm going to tell you right now. And that same instinct goes for Xbox as well, because Xbox is doing it much broadly. Hey, you could play on your TV, you could play wherever you want. You know what I mean? And they're going to try to build that library more and more. They're going to try to be more logical in saying hey, you can buy a game through your TV. I think that's where they're going. But that's not to say that the box itself doesn't have more value on the way the games play. And I hope they understand that, because if I play on my TV or I play on my Series X, as far as especially multiplayer gaming, two totally different aspects. And I really hope they don't lose that, because you have to realize you have to put that box under there until these TVs are like, like PCs in themselves with small little chips that can do the same amount of work. Until then, it's not going to happen. So you need to take a step back on that aspect. Other than that, PlayStation is already starting to do the same things. And it sucks for the console warrior, I guess. I really don't care. Like when people were pissed at me when I said, I don't care if Gears goes to PlayStation. And then all the other people behind me are like, yeah, we don't care. We're a part of a community. We love Gears. And that's the same thing that a lot of people that are playing Helldivers, even if they're on PlayStation, look at that and say, man, this is going to be awesome. You know what I mean? Like, that's the point. Like, enjoy the game. Like, if the game isn't for you, don't play it. But other than that, if it's for you, I mean, my God, it would be great to have new people to talk to and have interactions with and play games with and understand their thought process. And that's the way I look at a lot of things. And I really hope that, both companies somewhat come together. I'm not saying like you might get Last of Us 1 in like a year or something. You might get Spider-Man this year or next year. You might get something like that. But these are all single player games. We're talking about all I care about is multiplayer. I love playing multiplayer. I love it. And Helldivers is right up my alley, because I will laugh so hard when I die. I mean, I play PC people all the time on Gears, and I get my arse whooped. And that's the way I look at it. And I say, you know what? But they're still funny. They're like, I'm using my mouse and whatever. And it's just a laugh fest. And we have fun. And I think that's what gaming should always be. It should always be fun. And I really think that, like, the Helldivers that are getting mad are eventually going to warm up to us, because we don't give a shit.
No, you're not wrong. And again, I think that there's going to be I think the game's going to sell super well on Xbox. I really do. So, Buzz, let's bring you in here. Helldivers 2, the first official third-party publishing from PlayStation. Will it be the last? The answer is no. Why won't it be the last? PlayStation likes money. They also have a first-party roadmap problem. If they don't have the first-party games to sell, what are they going to sell? Are they going to sell marketed and money-hatted deals? Yeah, I guess they could sell a couple of them, but I mean, just look at how well, what the heck is the name of the game? Something Yams that they always say.
Stellar Blade.
Yeah, the Stellar Yams. That's what a Stellar Blade. Stellar Blade is going to be coming to Xbox. When is that? This year? I don't think so. I think they probably have like a lock on that. But Stellar Blade did gangbuster numbers on Steam. How well did it sell on PS5? Well, we know $1 million for sure. About $1 million. Is that enough? I don't think so. And when you bring in sales to Helldivers. Now, I went looking. Any of our detectives or sleuths in the chat, I know that they've sold 14 million copies across Steam and PS5. That's a massive amount of game. That's a massive amount of sales. 14 million is a lot of sales. I just don't know how many was on PlayStation versus Steam, right? I know I saw a vague suggestion that it was 12 million on PC versus 2 million on PlayStation 5. I don't know if I don't have that as a absolute fact, ladies and gentlemen. So if any of our detectives or sleuths in the chat could find the number for me, DM me or drop it into the chat and we'll make mention of it. So, but let's just, again, for shits and giggles, say it's 2 million.
Mhm.
Is 2 million enough for Helldivers 2? I mean, I guess depending on who you ask. I'm sure that Arrowhead would love 14 million sales on PlayStation. Now, again, the game comes out in the 26th. We don't know how many people are going to buy it. I bought it, right? Crispy's going to buy it. There are probably people in this chat right now that have bought it. I can't wait to play it. I very much enjoyed it on PlayStation when I played it, but I prefer the Xbox controller, and I like the Elite controller. I think it's way better. I think it's going to be a better experience for me, especially when you have to do the Konami code to drop weapons, because that's really what it's all about, dropping that damn Konami code. That's why my brother returned it. He didn't like it because of that. I thought it was a good challenge, but whatever.
Yeah.
My question to you is simple. This is I think it's the start of what PlayStation is ultimately going to do. The question is, what happens next? Well, I suppose PlayStation is going to be waiting to see how many people on Xbox buy this game. It's going to be 1 million, 2 million, 5 million, 10 million. We don't know. It's a great game. And I think that the audience that likes multiplayer, like Crispy said, is on Xbox. And this is an opportunity for Xbox players who have wanted a Spider-Man to come over to make their voice heard. And how you do that is with spending money. You buy this game and Sony makes enough money, they will consider bringing something like Returnal over, or something like Spider-Man 2018 and Miles Morales. I think that could be a 2-pack. They could sell for $70, and people like me who enjoyed both those games would rebuy it and play it on Xbox. It's not a problem. I'm a gamer. I enjoy games everywhere. Again, it's a mindset that I had to grow into, because I was everyone that follows this channel knows that I was very into exclusivity. Well, that's not in fact the case anymore. But if like I said, I bought Helldivers 2 on multiple platforms. I will gladly buy Spider-Man and Miles Morales on Xbox if it comes out. Do you think honestly that this is the polite kick of the door falling off its hinges for PlayStation?
Not exactly. And I'll give you my controversial take on this, although I think it will lead to that. I think, okay, so there was some smoke, and Special Nick had made mention of it, and I know you talked about it last year, as far as there were talks about this coming over to Xbox, whether Phil made the plea or somebody on his behalf made the plea, whatever the case was. I don't think it went very far, but that having those talks in general put a bug in somebody's ear. Fast forward to today. I think this is primarily because of Bungie's failing. And let me get into it. Marathon was supposed to be coming out this summer, right?
Yep.
Their Destiny 2 live service game is kind of winding down. It still has its loyal daily players, but it's nowhere near the numbers it's seen in the past. That being said, I think there is there's going to be movement as far as either Bungie being dissolved or absorbed, or however you want to look at it. It's already seen some layoffs. It's already seen some team members shift over to that LFG group and other PlayStation studios. So with that being said, this massive live service division that you acquired to help you with your live service, and your only live service that did well is Helldivers at this point, and it doesn't look like Marathon is probably going to see the light of day. What better way to put something in place to earn the money that you were hoping that Marathon would? One that's already a proven title, that all you're missing is a player base that is mainly multiplayer focused, which this is right up their alley. So why not, if Marathon does go away and Bungie goes away, put this out on Xbox, recoup some of that money that you were hoping or anticipating from Marathon until you get some other stuff figured out from LFG or whatever other, fair game, if that's even going to make it into the existence. So that being said, this made sense. It's like, have, our first party, port studio work on it, put it on Xbox. We get some money out of it. And from there, if this does well, I think that does kick open the door. But I don't think that was originally the plan to be the multi-platform. I think this is just to kind of fix the hole that Marathon is going to leave. And when Bungie either goes away or is absorbed, or however you look at it, it'll probably make more sense. Which anybody left at Bungie, I would say your job is in more jeopardy than the remaining of turn 10 at this point. So take that what you will. But I just feel that this was more of a quick fix, or not really a quick fix, because it takes more than 6 months for their studio to do that porting type of deal. But I do believe that concerted effort was with all of the stuff that they were having going on behind the scenes with Marathon before the, stealing of artwork and stuff like that, just the lackluster feedback that they've been getting. And they've even made mention that they've taken note of the feedback that they've gotten on Marathon. So with that being said, why not put Helldivers on Xbox? It will probably sell a couple million, maybe 5 million copies pretty easily. Keep the life of that game alive. Maybe we do see crossover stuff. That would be an interesting title to kind of
money is what you're saying.
I mean, because the skin, basically the cosmetics in this game are been reasonably priced, which I know might be kind of shocking for a PlayStation game. But then again, Destiny is the ones that have made cosmetics ridiculous to some extent. But looking at the cosmetics, I think there's plenty of potential for Halo crossovers or Gears of War crossovers, or other, licensed IP, whether Aliens or something like that actually does a crossover with it. I can imagine the amount of revenue that they can earn from those cosmetics. This is a co-op PvE game. Sure, there's a few knuckleheads that are talking a big game of how they're going to kill Xbox players. How about you unhide your account and show the actual hours you play the game, if you've actually even played the game? Because that one particular individual doesn't play games. It's like, I'm not going to disparage somebody that's known in the community. It's almost as bad, but yeah, I hate when people are like, yeah, let me start this hate campaign on a game, or this hate campaign against a particular player base, and they don't even play the game. It's like, do you even own the game, let alone do you even play it? So I don't know. That's just weird person energy, and I'll leave it at that. But I think this is more so to fill a gap that Marathon is going to leave when it gets finally canceled. And then if, us Xbox players do support this game enough, I think The Last of Us could be on the table. I think Spider-Man could be on the table. The license IP makes sense.
Uncharted is a rumor that they're toying with. They could release the Uncharted collection. And again, folks, that's just a rumor. Take it with a massive grain of salt. But
it would be nice if Uncharted. I think The Last of Us first, only because, well, one, they had recent PC updates, which I think the porting aspect might be a little less intensive, and two, that would be their Fallout equivalent.
Yes.
Even though season 2 isn't doing as well from what I'm hearing, that would be their Fallout equivalent. So don't be surprised if that appears on Xbox. But Spider-Man makes sense. Disney is, and somebody explained it better to me as far as like the egregious amounts that they collect on royalties and licensing.
Unbelievable. And mind you, it was upped to 35% from 25% last year. Yeah.
Well, it's Disney doing that strong arm tactic, kind of like what Phil did to Kotick on pricing. It's like, oh, well, you don't want to sell us back the Spider-Man IP. How about we beat you over the head until you do? So, hey, but Spider-Man could be on the table. I think Last of Us before Uncharted, but Uncharted definitely, because they're going to want to redo that and make some more money off of their current player base. Why not put it across the board and collect as much money as you can on one advertising campaign? That makes sense to me. So, but we'll see if how well this is supported. And sure, there'll be people like, oh, they only sold 22,000 copies the first week. And then the idiots forget that people continue to buy after the first week, like they did with Final Fantasy 16, which then made it into the top 10. So
yes, it did.
Let's see if Helldivers does. I would not be surprised. I hate to say this. I think this is going to be a PlayStation former exclusive that gets more known as being on Xbox after it comes to Xbox. But we'll see if the PlayStation cats go back to picking that game up, because PC has been holding the fort down for so long, and they needed the reinforcements, and now they'll have them.
Yeah, indeed. Well, I mean, look, there is a. If you don't believe what we're talking about, if you believe that the sales on PlayStation were enough, I'm not going to fight with you, folks. Like I said, go look for the numbers. They sold a total of 14 million across 2 platforms. That's really good. That's a really good number. 14 million is a really good number. As a matter of fact, unbelievably, Helldivers outsold Spider-Man 2, which cost $315 million to make. Think about that. The little studio that could in Arrowhead, their game sold more than Spider-Man did. That's bonkers. Now, again, I don't know how many they sold on PlayStation. Is Xbox going to sell more? Maybe, maybe not. I don't know. We're going to have to find out. Well, I would imagine we'll come across this conversation a couple of weeks after its launch in August. As we get into late into September, maybe even October, we'll get the final tally. When it slows down to a crawl. I really think this is going to do really good on Xbox. I really do. But there is something to be said, ladies and gentlemen. If it did so well on PlayStation, why would Arrowhead Studios walk away from a bag of money from Sony and literally put out a presser that says when you make 100% of when you fund 100% of your game, you make 100% of the decisions. You don't think that was a shot across the bow for Sony? It was, folks. And their next game, because of the success of Helldivers 2 on PlayStation, on Steam more specifically, and now on Xbox, they're going to fund their own game. And that game is probably going to be a multi-plat across 3 platforms upon release. So they'll still work with Sony, but they're not doing an exclusivity with them. And getting real again, before we get out of here, because we went a little bit longer than I thought that we were going to go, the skins situation, if they add ODST skins to this thing, it's going to be printing money. If they add COG skins, like maybe a Carmine skin or something like that, it's going to be printing money. If they add a Fallout Power Armor skin, it's going to print money for Arrowhead, ladies and gentlemen. It's going to make a lot of money for Sony. So if they have those skins, guess what? I'm going to buy every one of them. They're going to get my money. And yes, I'm going to play it. Yes, I'm going to enjoy the H out of it. And I hope that they do these skins. And I think that it's certainly possible that that's already being worked on at some point or another. Again, it's basically printing money. But let me just catch up on to make sure I'm all caught up on Super Chats. And yes, we are. Folks, this has been a great show. 3 topics. Originally was going to be 2, but well, you asked for it, and I was more than happy to oblige because we were talking Banjo Kazooie for about 20 minutes, give or take. But Crispy Bomb, let's tell the brand, brother, while we get everyone out of here. A big thank you to well over 500 people watching live on a very ridiculously hot Monday, at least here in New Rochelle, New York. This summer can go F itself. I cannot wait for the fall. And the quicker we get through July, that means we get to August. And the quicker we get to August, that means we get to the fall. So, yay. Crispy Bomb, tell the brand, brother, where can people find you on the socials to get that crispy truth? And what else you got going on, brother?
At Crispbomb on X, Crispbomb28, Xbox Live. And you can find me wherever I show up on Boom's channel. Still a Boom's exclusive, even though I have asked for other people to say, hey, we want to join. I mean, especially those PlayStation podcasts, I will gladly trash you real quick. But other than that, I'm waiting for fall too, because I love a good apple fritter, and it's been a while since I've had an apple fritter, so can't wait for that. But yeah, summer's very hot.
Yeah. No, I don't like the summer. At least in New York. I mean, I guess if you're living in San Diego, where the weather is delicious and it's a nice balmy 78 degrees with the sea breeze, I guess you could like the summer. Not here in New York. It's all it is humidity. I can't stand it. Shout out to Will the Broke Boy Lewis in the chat. Will, great to see you here, brother. Thanks so much for hanging out. What did he have to say here? It says, Chris Gerard, Boom doesn't ban too many people in the chat. I do not, unless they get rude or start spamming the chat. Yeah, listen, I don't normally, I have modders, right? Everybody on this panel is a modder, but the main modder is Lethal Papa. And I've talked about him before. He's one of the best mods in the business, and he has unbelievable patience. If you say anything racist, permaban. Sexist, permaban. You try to bring a political agenda, permaban. We're here for gaming. Yes, we're going to talk some smack sometimes against PlayStation or Nintendo, or even give Xbox a business. But unless it gets personal, you're good. You want to talk? You want to have a conversation in the chat? Have a conversation. Even if you have a lot of conversation. That's what the chat is for. Unless, again, no bullying. No, you can be pointed, sure, but if any bullying, you're gone. Any cursing, you're gone. Because again, I cursed on the show? Sure. I like a PG-13 show, and if you're an all caps kind of a person, that your expiration date is quicker, because we can't have that. Write your point and write it well, and we'll talk about it. But again, I normally don't ban. I don't like it because I don't want to, somebody, just having a bad day and you ban them. That sucks. So we have a tremendous amount of patience here. Thank you, Will, for the clarification, brother. But Fuzzy Belvedere, I know that normally we sell the Mrs. Brand, and I think we do a good job on Fridays simply because she has a show Friday evenings, Fright Night with Ferocious Fee, 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And if you are a fan of horror, you definitely should check it out. But we are trying to get people to your channel to get you to the 500 mark, to then get you to the 1,000 mark. So sell the brand of the Fuzzy Belvedere Racing channel. Because, folks, I've said this before, and I'll say it again, it's the best place for anything and everything in the racing genre. Sell the brand, brother. Where can people subscribe to your YouTube channel? But more importantly, follow you on social media.
Oh, as always, love being on here with you and Crispy. Always love it when Crispy drops by for the lunch break special. Just love his viewpoints on the industry, as well as multiplayer games and everything in between. Just love interacting with everybody in the chat. I did time somebody out today. Been a bit of a nuisance. Don't want to say a stalker, but kind of. But aside from that, I think everybody else handled themselves pretty well. The one guy just seems to parrot other fanboys like Crap Gamer and a few others for whatever reason. But aside from that, everybody enjoyed I enjoyed the conversation and the interaction with you guys in the chat. Greatly appreciate you guys supporting us and watching us this Monday afternoon. For those who want to hear my rambles and rants on anything gaming related, you can find me on YouTube or most social media. Just do a search for Fuzzy Belvedere. I put the link for both my YouTube as well as my wife's YouTube in the chat. We released 2 videos recently, one being interview for the creators of Swine and Dine. It's a short short independent horror film. It will be doing its premiere, I believe, on the 27th of this month. But for all of those that backed it on Indiegogo, they should already have their copies. But definitely check out the interview. No spoilers in the interview. Just basically talking about industry stuff as far as what it's like to make your own movie and so forth. We also did, I think, Megan, and we also did a couple other movies in between. We've done quite a few more recent movies that we've been talking about. I know some people have seen the Megan 2 movie as well in the chat and stuff. There's some Megan 2 chat talked about in that episode without really spoiling things, but definitely check out Fright Night with Ferocious Fee every Friday, 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. But other than that, stop the doom scroll on social media, take a break from it, play some games, or post some video clips and pictures of the games you enjoy. That's probably the best way to approach social media when it comes to gaming in general. Not getting into arguments with devs that hate Game Pass for whatever reason. I don't know if it pisses in.
Yeah, we're going to cover that tomorrow. Yeah.
something. But yeah, enjoy gaming. There's plenty of it out there. Despite the bad stuff from last week, there's still plenty of games to play. So tackle that backlog, because I know mine is piling up as I dive back into Division 2, which Brooklyn DLC.
Excellent. Chef's kiss, man. Absolutely well worth it. But ladies and gentlemen, that's going to do it for us here. Tomorrow, expect a very big conversation, talking about my thoughts. I'm going to get into more detail why I think Spider-Man 2018 is the next big one and why Nixus is probably working on it as we speak. We're also going to get into that conversation that Fuzzy made mention of, a specific dev that hasn't been a part of a specific studio owned by Xbox since 2017, decided to come out and say that Xbox is bad. So of course everybody jumped on a bandwagon, and once again, I get it. You should give Microsoft smoke for laying off 9,100 people. You should give Xbox the smoke for laying off, and I believe the number is somewhere in like 1,000 or more from their first party studios, canceling a couple games. They deserve the smoke, folks. But the whole conversation of Xbox Game Pass is bad is ridiculous, and how it's bad for the industry. Folks, whether you notice or not, and again, I'm going to reiterate this tomorrow, there are hundreds of games released every week. The problem with the ultimate problem with gaming as we know it right now are free-to-play games. That is what has ruined why people buy games. They're called black hole games for a reason. You can pick up a free-to-play game and never spend a dime, and you can play for hundreds of hours. You don't even have to buy the season pass if you don't want to, but most people will. That is what has changed the culture in spending in gaming. We're going to go into it tomorrow. We're going to name some names tomorrow, folks, especially the developer, because, well, he put it out there, so we got to talk about it. I'm not going to be, vague about it. I'll tell you who he is. He has been a part of Arcane since 2017. He left for family reasons, and that's awesome, right? Hopefully everything worked out for him and his family, and that's why he left the business. But it's 2025. Where are you coming from with this? I'm just a little shocked. But we'll get into it tomorrow, 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. As you've seen me do before, I am going to cut this podcast into smaller videos, new thumbnails, throw it up on the socials for people to check out if you missed the live stream. And I'm getting a lot of really great feedback regarding making smaller videos out of the podcasts. And you guys and gals are really enjoying that. So thank you so much for that. And of course, a big thank you to all of the super chats that popped in. Mrs. Boom and I are incredibly grateful for the support. And we're going to close the show with something that's incredibly important to me. Hopefully, folks, one day be important to you. And that's something that my dad taught me when we were kids. And he would say, Craig, treat others how you want to be treated. And also, it doesn't cost anything to be nice. You live by those rules, son. I guarantee you're going to have an awesome day. So take care, everyone. And we'll see you next week on the newest episode of the Xbox Lunch Break Special.